and it was painted to match your Bugatti,
Right, one over
a
there.
factory race car.
Right, that was Pierre Veron's car, and he won some Grand Prix with it, so it's pretty neat. Yeah, it's hard to believe this car as a concept is...
Jay Leno stared directly into the camera, his face unusually pale beneath the studio lights, as though the weight of something immense pressed down on him. There was no laughter, no band, no audience applause, no polished introduction. Only Jay, sitting alone, speaking with a voice that barely held steady. He said he had broken into his own studio without approval, that the broadcast wasn't scheduled, and that what he was about to reveal was not entertainment. 3 minutes earlier, something happened that forced his hand. Something he couldn't keep to himself, not even for his own safety. His eyes shifted nervously, like he was waiting for someone to burst through the door and shut him down mid-sentence. But he kept talking, insisting the world had to hear this before the opportunity vanished. Jay said the entire ordeal began with a phone call he wasn't supposed to receive. The caller's voice was disguised, the connection scrambled, but the urgency felt unmistakably real. They told him he had been chosen because people trusted him, because he had a voice governments couldn't easily silence, and because he didn't belong to any political or scientific institution that could be pressured into obedience. Jay admitted that he almost laughed at the idea until the caller mentioned a classified designation he recognized instantly, one he'd joked about years ago without ever realizing it wasn't a joke at all. Project Echo Glass. The sound of that name alone pulled the color from his face even now as he spoke, because it meant one thing. The caller wasn't bluffing. He described driving to a private warehouse outside Burbank, a place he normally used to store vintage motorcycles. But tonight it was occupied by 2 men he had never met before, both former aerospace engineers terminated under suspicious circumstances that they refused to detail. Their hands shook with what Jay first assumed was fear of being caught, until he saw what they had brought. A case, lead-lined, locked with biometric seals. Inside was a hardened tablet containing satellite telemetry logs so classified they shouldn't have existed outside a military vault. Jay saw the timestamp of the most recent data, less than 6 hours old, and the entire room seemed to grow colder as the engineers explained that the satellite wasn't supposed to be in Earth's registry at all. Jay said the footage captured by the satellite showed a massive structure rising above Earth's upper atmosphere, but calling it a structure barely captured its strangeness. It wasn't a craft or asteroid or debris. It was a geometric formation, shifting like a puzzle box, unfolding itself in slow, deliberate phases. It had no engines, no heat signature, no identifiable material composition. What terrified him most was that it acted with intention. It wasn't drifting randomly. It was aligning. With what? They didn't know. Then Jay's voice dropped even lower as he described the moment the engineers showed him the pulse event. A single burst of low-frequency resonance emitted from the structure that rippled across the planet in under a second. The engineers replayed global telemetry footage, airports reporting simultaneous compass failures, heart monitors glitching, cell towers dropping signal, power grids flickering in regions thousands of miles apart. Governments blamed ionospheric disturbance, but the engineers told Jay that was a manufactured lie. The pulse did not come from the sun. It came from that thing in orbit. Jay said he could have walked away then, convinced himself this was some elaborate hoax. But the engineers pulled up another file, one that changed everything. It contained archived seismic recordings from an excavation beneath the Iraqi desert years ago. Jay recognized the location from fringe documentaries and articles he'd mocked on late-night television. Stories of an ancient chamber tied to early Sumerian myths. Legends of a king who sought immortality. But here, on screen, were tonal frequency graphs nearly identical to the orbital pulse. Not similar, not close, identical. A perfect match. The engineers explained to Jay that the pulse wasn't a simple signal. Embedded within its harmonics were mathematical sequences, star coordinates, prime number expansions, and dimensional calculations no human civilization could have produced at the time the chamber was sealed. The implication was horrifying. The pulse wasn't new. It had been recorded before. Thousands of years ago, something beneath the desert had emitted the exact same signal. and whatever lay underground had stopped only when the chamber was buried, purposefully. Jay said the engineers' voices cracked when they told him their biggest fear. The new pulse had reactivated the chamber. Sensors around the excavation site detected vibrations deep beneath the sand, not seismic tremors, but rhythmic oscillations, like something enormous stirring after a long sleep. Then Jay received the drone footage. He warned viewers that what he saw in that video was the most disturbing thing he had ever witnessed. A vast, shifting shadow moving beneath the surface, distorting the sand in large, sweeping arcs, as if something alive, something impossibly large, was pushing upward. The drone captured the ground, rippling in patterns that looked almost deliberate, as though responding to the orbital structure. Then the video cut out in a burst of static. Jay was told 3 more drones were deployed, but none lasted more than seconds before losing connection. Jay said he replayed the footage until he felt sick, because the movement didn't resemble machinery or geology. It felt awake, a presence stretching against the weight of centuries. Jay described trying to rationalize what he had seen, telling himself it had to be an underground cave collapse or an imaging glitch. But then he opened the last file the engineers gave him, an audio extraction of the pulse itself. He said the deep, vibrating hum resonated in his chest, and beneath it was a pattern of ascending pulses, slow at first, then gradually increasing tempo, like a heartbeat syncing with another heartbeat. Jay said the engineers believed the pulse from orbit wasn't just a signal, it was a key, and the underground mechanism, or creature, or whatever it was, had recognized it. Jay continued, explaining that the engineers warned him the orbital structure had begun rotating sections of itself in perfect alignment with star coordinates referenced in the Sumerian tablets. These weren't decorative symbols or mythological interpretations. They were instructions, diagrams, schematics. Ancient people didn't carve these shapes to tell stories. They carved them to preserve knowledge. And now somehow that knowledge was being fulfilled. Jay said the governments monitoring the situation believed a second pulse was imminent. They were preparing emergency communication protocols, blackout suppression systems, and martial law contingencies, all while assuring the public everything was normal. Jay said his source told him that if communication networks were disabled by the next pulse, the truth would vanish. The world would be left blind. Jay warned that this was why he was broadcasting without permission. He didn't trust the institutions handling this. He didn't trust that the world would ever be told what was really unfolding. And he didn't trust that whatever was waking beneath the sand had peaceful intentions. He emphasized that this wasn't science fiction. This wasn't ancient mythology. This was happening. Now. Jay described reading a classified report suggesting the underground chamber was not a tomb, but a containment structure. The carvings inside weren't spiritual. They were mechanical diagrams encoded in religious symbolism to obscure their true purpose. The king buried within might never have been a king at all, but a piece of technology or a biological construct beyond human understanding. Something designed to sleep until reactivated. Jay said his hands shook when he read the final line of the report. Activation sequence incomplete, awaiting orbital counterpart. That was when he realized the structure in space and the chamber beneath Iraq were not separate anomalies. They were parts of a single system, a system that had remained dormant for millennia, and humanity had accidentally turned it back on. Jay took a breath, steadying himself, and told viewers that experts were divided on what would happen next. Some believed the activation would open a dimensional aperture, pulling energy into or out of our world. Others believed it would create a planetary-scale resonance shift that could destabilize gravity, magnetism, or even time. A smaller group believed the mechanism was not meant for destruction at all, but for communication, a call directed at something beyond Earth. Jay said he had not slept since receiving the files, haunted by the idea that ancient civilizations might have witnessed the same activation cycle and carved what they could understand into stone. They lacked the tools to stop it, so they hid it instead, burying it under layers of earth and myth. But humanity, in its pursuit of knowledge, had dug it back up. Jay explained that in the hours since receiving the data, He had spoken to several scientists privately, all of whom insisted on anonymity. They confirmed the patterns in the pulses matched pre-Sumerian inscriptions long thought to be proto-writing. Except now, with modern computational tools, those inscriptions formed a phonetic map of frequencies identical to the pulse. This wasn't language, it was code. And the code was activating again. Jay said he could feel the fear swelling in his chest as he realized the next pulse could strike at any moment. He urged viewers to remain calm if they witnessed strange atmospheric distortions, flickering power, or sudden pressure changes. The first pulse already weakened global systems. The second pulse would be stronger. And the third, if it occurred, could finalize whatever sequence the system was running. Jay warned viewers that governments would attempt to suppress information if the second pulse created global panic. Media outlets would be ordered to broadcast pre-written statements. Internet platforms would be throttled. Satellite communication could be intentionally jammed. Jay said he refused to be part of any cover-up. People deserved the truth. Jay described how one scientist told him the orbital structure wasn't moving randomly. It was aligning itself along an invisible axis, one that extended through Earth, intersecting precisely where the underground chamber was located. This meant the mechanism wasn't just responding to the pulse, it was preparing for a direct connection. Jay said the most chilling detail came from another expert who noticed the orbital structure had begun emitting faint light patterns that resembled Sumerian star glyphs. Not carved or painted, but formed through shifting geometry. The structure was broadcasting ancient shapes into the night sky, as though reminding the mechanism below of its original programming. Jay leaned forward, lowering his voice even further, saying the underground chamber's latest reading showed increased structural movement. Not upward this time, but outward, like walls expanding or contracting in rhythmic cycles. The chamber appeared to be breathing. Jay said the engineer who reported this was visibly shaken, admitting he couldn't explain how stone could move like that. Jay said the man told him, "It isn't stone anymore." Jay continued, saying one theory proposed that the underground mechanism was never meant to interact with humans at all, that Earth might not be its origin point, that it was brought here, or placed here, intentionally, as a seed, as a lock, as part of something larger, something cosmic. Jay said he didn't know what terrified him more, the possibility that humanity had awakened something ancient and alien, or the possibility that humanity had always been part of a system it never understood. The legends of gods descending from the heavens, the myths of watchers, the tales of beings who shaped civilizations, all of them could have been distorted memories of past activation events. Jay admitted the weight of this realization made him dizzy, but he pushed forward, insisting people needed to prepare mentally for whatever came next. He didn't know if anyone would believe him, but he needed the truth out before it was too late, before the second pulse arrived. Jay said he felt a faint vibration under his feet as he spoke, as though the studio itself sensed something approaching. He wondered aloud if it was his imagination or if the resonance was already reaching them. He asked viewers to pay attention to any unusual sensations in the air, a pressure shift, a low hum, a sense of static crawling across the skin. These could be early signs of the second pulse. Jay looked directly at the camera, his eyes strained, and said he hoped he was wrong. He hoped the mechanism would stop. He hoped the alignment would fail. But the data told a different story. Everything was moving toward completion. Every reading, every rotation of the structure, every vibration beneath the sand pointed to a countdown reaching its end. Jay's voice cracked as he recounted the final message his source sent him moments before he went live. It was only 2 words. It begins. Attached was a still frame from the orbital structure. One of its panels had fully opened, revealing hollow geometry inside resembling a vast rotating gate. Not mechanical, not digital, something beyond. Jay said he had no words for the feeling that washed over him when he saw it, because the geometry inside the structure wasn't static. It moved in ways the human mind struggled to process, shapes twisting and folding through dimensions he could barely comprehend. It was like watching reality being rewritten. Jay said the most terrifying detail came after. a message embedded in the final pulse analysis. Not in a human language, not even in a decipherable pattern. Just a phrase the algorithm flagged as semantic likelihood. 3 haunting words: "We are returning." Jay drew a shaky breath and said that if those words meant what he feared, humanity was no longer alone and never had been. Something ancient was re-establishing contact, something powerful, something awakened by the pulse. Jay placed his hand flat on the desk, steadying himself, and told viewers to listen closely. His voice dropped to nearly a whisper as he said he could feel the hum again, stronger this time. He said the air in the room felt heavier, vibrating with pressure. His earpiece buzzed with static. The lights flickered overhead. Jay's eyes widened. He asked if anyone else could hear it. A deep, rising tone swelling through the walls, rattling the camera. Jay whispered, "It's here." The studio trembled with a low-frequency resonance that made the audio distort. Jay tried to say more, but the hum intensified until the camera image glitched and colors warped across the screen. The hum deepened into a bass so powerful it made objects shake visibly on Jay's desk. Papers fluttered. The microphone crackled. Jay reached toward the camera as though trying to hold the connection together. His mouth moved, but no sound came through, only the overwhelming pulse drowning out his voice entirely. The lights cut out for a split second, plunging the studio into darkness. When they flickered back on, Jay stared directly at the camera in stunned silence. His expression said everything. He recognized the signal. He knew what it meant. His lips formed one final sentence the microphone barely captured. The second pulse just hit, and the feed went black. When the screen flickered back on, Jay's desk was empty. The studio lights dimmed and pulsed erratically, casting shadows that moved against the walls in impossible directions. Viewers watching the live feed reported an unearthly hum permeating their devices, a low-frequency vibration that seemed to travel through the room itself. Some called it interference. Others swore it was audible, felt in their chest as if resonating with something deep beneath the earth. Jay's voice returned faintly through the static, strained but resolute, warning anyone listening that what they had just witnessed was only the beginning. Outside the studio, emergency alarms were triggered across the city. Power grids dipped in pulses, streetlights flickered, and car engines stalled mid-drive. Jay described in fragmented sentences that the orbital structure had changed configuration again, now projecting a geometric lattice across the night sky. The lattice was subtle, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, but when viewed through telescopic instruments, it seemed to shimmer, like a vast cosmic circuit suddenly activated. Jay's source sent him a second drone feed, taken from hundreds of miles away near the Iraqi excavation. The feed showed the desert sands convulsing violently, forming spiral ridges that had never appeared in any geological record. A thin column of light shot upward from the fissure that had opened in the underground chamber, connecting visually with a star in the sky that aligned perfectly with the orbital lattice. Jay's voice trembled as he narrated that the alignment suggested intentional coordination. The pulse and the orbital lattice were not isolated events. They were a communication protocol, a connection between Earth's hidden mechanism and something orbiting beyond. By now, governments were scrambling. International space agencies issued emergency protocols to monitor the orbital structure, yet their instruments failed to register precise readings. Satellite feeds kept glitching, and telemetry returned nonsensical data, as if the structure was actively obscuring detection. Jay explained that even the engineers monitoring the mechanism admitted that they couldn't predict what the system's next move would be. It had become autonomous, reacting dynamically to human attempts at observation. Jay leaned closer to the camera, warning viewers that the harmonic frequency emitted by the second pulse had begun to affect localized gravity fields. Laboratory reports suggested micro-fluctuations, not dangerous enough to collapse structures yet, but noticeable anomalies. Objects in the studio seemed to levitate subtly before settling back down. Jay's hands shook as he tried to steady a stack of papers, and he admitted that even he didn't fully understand what was happening. The engineers sent a mathematical overlay of the pulse frequencies, showing how the patterns corresponded not just to ancient star maps, but to theoretical higher dimensional coordinates. Jay explained that the sequence could be interpreted as a multi-dimensional key. If fully activated, the system could theoretically open a resonance window that interacted with space-time itself. He hesitated, emphasizing that the implications were terrifying. Drone footage captured creatures or constructs moving through the desert in ways that defied conventional physics. Shadows elongated, split, and folded back on themselves. Jay narrated that the engineers insisted this was not a hallucination or camera artifact. The resonance from the second pulse appeared to have affected matter itself, bending light and mass around the reawakened mechanism. Jay paused, his voice barely audible over the persistent hum. He warned that the next pulse could be catastrophic. Unlike the first, this was intentionally synchronized, designed to trigger a direct response from the mechanism below. He said the underground chamber's walls were shifting, revealing complex glyphs that had been obscured for millennia. These glyphs now glowed faintly, indicating energy flow. Like a circuit completing its final loop, communication from local authorities near the site became intermittent. Reports of unexplained electromagnetic interference flooded in. Aircraft experienced instrument malfunctions. Jay said this was a direct effect of the mechanism's harmonic resonance reaching far beyond the immediate excavation. It was global, subtle, but undeniable. The second pulse had changed the rules. Jay's source warned him that the alignment between the chamber and the orbital lattice would reach peak synchronization within the next hour. When this happened, they predicted a third pulse, one that would fully activate the system. Jay described this as the triggering event, an occurrence that could either initiate communication or catastrophic transformation. He admitted he didn't know which, only that the stakes were now beyond comprehension. As the feed continued, Jay showed viewers new data. The pulse harmonics corresponded to vocal frequencies found in ancient inscriptions, the same frequencies recorded in Proto-Sumerian tablets. Analysts suggested the frequencies were a form of pre-verbal communication, possibly intended to guide or control the mechanism. Jay emphasized that this suggested intelligence far beyond human understanding had designed the system. A sudden tremor shook the studio. Jay steadied the camera, whispering that seismic sensors near the excavation site registered simultaneous tremors across multiple layers of the underground chamber. The harmonic frequency from orbit appeared to resonate with the chamber's structural matrix, generating feedback loops that affected physical space itself. Jay narrated that nightfall revealed even more startling phenomena. The orbital lattice cast faint geometric shadows on Earth's surface, synchronized with the chamber's glyphs, illuminating the desert in patterns that matched ancient star constellations. It was as if the mechanism was communicating through geometry, sending a message encoded in the language of space itself. Observers worldwide reported sensory anomalies, disorientation, vertigo, auditory hallucinations. Jay explained that the second pulse had altered ambient electromagnetic fields, subtly affecting human perception. While not immediately harmful, prolonged exposure caused intense cognitive stress. Governments issued cryptic warnings about avoiding unnecessary outdoor activity. Jay said the drone feed from the Iraqi desert showed the shadow beneath the sands had risen several meters, folding like a living lattice of stone and energy. The engineers speculated that the underground mechanism was now interacting directly with the orbital structure, synchronized to harmonic resonance at a scale no human instrument could fully measure. Jay noted that satellite imagery confirmed an anomaly above the South Pole, another geometric formation moving in sync with the orbital lattice. Analysts speculated that the mechanism might have multiple nodes on Earth, awakening simultaneously in response to the pulses. Jay emphasized that this was no longer a localized event, it had global implications. Reports from scientific teams indicated unusual solar particle activity coinciding with the pulses. Jay explained that the phenomenon appeared to manipulate local magnetic fields, suggesting that the mechanism could influence planetary systems remotely. These weren't random natural events. They were precise, coordinated, and purposeful. Jay leaned forward again, warning viewers that the third pulse, the triggering event, could occur without warning. No one could predict whether it would be communicative or destructive. The system had now achieved full autonomy, responding to its own internal logic and external stimuli. Humanity had inadvertently become a participant in an ancient planetary-scale experiment. Drone footage revealed subterranean light streams emanating from fractures within the Iraqi chamber. Jay described how the engineers interpreted these streams as energy conduits, channeling resonance from the orbital structure down to the mechanism itself. The entire system was now active, humming with energy that defied conventional understanding. Jay noted that global networks were experiencing disruptions. Financial systems, transportation grids, and communications satellites intermittently failed or misreported positions. Analysts warned that as the third pulse approached, the intensity of these disruptions would increase exponentially. Jay urged viewers to stay calm but prepared. He described one of the engineers' calculations, showing that the harmonic frequency emitted by the orbital structure could influence fundamental constants in localized areas: gravity, electromagnetism, even temporal perception. Jay admitted he did not fully understand the mathematics but relayed that the implications were staggering. Jay showed viewers real-time footage of the desert surface cracking, glyphs glowing brighter, shadows rising higher. The pulse from orbit was perfectly synchronized with these movements. Engineers monitoring the data said the pattern was intentional, resembling sequences found in star maps and mathematical constants embedded in ancient artifacts. Jay emphasized that the system's awakening had triggered not only physical but informational responses. Data corruption, network anomalies, and sensor malfunctions were occurring worldwide. Analysts speculated that the mechanism might be scanning, adapting, or even learning in response to human technology. The hum grew louder in the studio, nearly deafening through broadcast equipment. Jay leaned close, whispering that he could feel vibrations in the air, felt in bones and teeth. The resonance was no longer just audible, it was tactile, influencing matter itself. Jay narrated that eyewitness reports from the desert described moving columns of light, folding and twisting, forming shapes that defied Euclidean geometry. Engineers theorized these were physical manifestations of higher dimensional structures projected into three-dimensional space. By now, Jay said, multiple governments had restricted media access near the excavation site. Communications were cut, restricted, or rerouted. He warned that official narratives might attempt to dismiss the event as a natural phenomenon. But viewers watching live were seeing evidence of deliberate coordination on a planetary scale. Jay explained that harmonic resonance analysis indicated the system had multiple stages of activation. The second pulse had completed Stage 1. Stage 2 was underway. Stage 3, the triggering pulse, was imminent. The engineers feared that once Stage 3 occurred, reversal would be impossible. Drone footage revealed new fissures forming in the desert. Jay said that energy streams from the chamber were connecting to underground mineral deposits, potentially acting as amplifiers for the mechanism's harmonic output. The landscape itself was becoming part of the system. Jay warned that the mechanism was not merely reactive, it was adaptive. Every pulse, every environmental fluctuation, every measurement taken by humans was integrated into its operation. The system appeared to be learning, adjusting to optimize synchronization with orbital and terrestrial nodes. He reported that global seismic activity was subtly changing. Jay's source suggested the system might be testing resonance frequencies on a planetary scale. Minor tremors were measured far from the site, correlating with pulse timing. Jay noted that deep ocean monitoring stations had recorded anomalous wave patterns, harmonic oscillations propagating through water columns. Scientists speculated the mechanism could influence oceans, possibly as part of its energy distribution network. Jay emphasized that the scale of this activation was unprecedented. Nothing in recorded history, mythology, science, or folklore could fully describe it. Humanity was witnessing a planetary system of unknown origin, awakening before their eyes. Drone footage showed the shadow beneath the sands rising higher, forming segmented structures resembling an enormous lattice. Jay described this as a physical manifestation of the resonance, translating abstract harmonic frequencies into matter. Jay said the engineers feared the third pulse might fully connect the orbital lattice with the underground mechanism. If that happened, the energy output could be immense, potentially affecting regional gravity, magnetism, and electrical systems in unpredictable ways. He warned viewers that the timing of the third pulse could be measured in minutes. The synchronization sequence was nearing completion. All sensors indicated an imminent final activation. Jay noted that early patterns suggested the system might attempt to establish some form of contact, but the method was unknown. It could be auditory, visual, electromagnetic, or entirely beyond human perception. He described the eerie calm before activation. Even in the desert, winds slowed, sand stopped moving, and the hum grew into a steady, all-encompassing tone. Jay said the engineers speculated this was a preparatory phase. Jay's voice trembled as he urged viewers to remain aware of sudden changes, flickering lights, electrical disruptions, or disorientation. These were signs the system's energy field had reached their vicinity. The orbital lattice pulsed again, synchronized perfectly with underground glyphs. Jay explained that this indicated the system was complete, ready for the final sequence. Jay warned that no intervention could halt what was coming. Humanity could only observe. The energy, once fully aligned, would follow its programmed trajectory. He described the shadow beneath the sands expanding like a massive living lattice, each segment resonating in perfect harmony with the orbital structure. Jay emphasized that the moment of activation could bring observable distortions, gravity anomalies, light bending, and sudden changes in electromagnetic fields. He leaned forward, whispering that the system's awakening might last hours or days, but the first effects would be immediate. People worldwide might already feel it. Jay concluded that viewers needed to stay calm, remain observant, and record anything unusual. This was history unfolding, not slowly, not abstractly, but now. The third pulse began. The hum intensified into a low roar. Jay's camera trembled. Lights flickered violently. The shadow beneath the sands fully rose, and a column of radiant energy pierced the night sky, connecting Earth to the orbital lattice. Jay's voice cracked as he whispered, "It's happening." The feed trembled with the vibration. Static overpowered his words. And then the screen went black again, leaving the world to witness the beginning of something beyond comprehension.